The city was loud, full of voices, engines, and flashing lights, but in one forgotten corner of the streets, there was silence. The alley smelled of rotten food, old water, and smoke from nearby factories. Broken glass sparkled in the dim light, and trash bins overflowed with leftovers no one wanted. It was here that a small figure crouched low, hidden in the shadows. She was an alien girl, no older than 16 in human years, though her face carried a strange beauty that could not be ignored. Her silver hair was tangled and dirty, her skin covered with dust and her clothes torn beyond repair. Her thin hands trembled as she picked up a piece of bread from the ground. It was wet, mixed with dirt, but she lifted it to her lips anyway. Hunger was stronger than pride. She chewed quickly, like a stray dog afraid someone would steal her food. People walked by the alley, some humans, some aliens, but none stopped. To them, she was nothing more than another beggar, another broken soul in a cruel city. Some even turned their faces away in disgust, but she kept eating, crouched near the trash bin, her glowing blue eyes darting nervously in every direction. Every sound made her flinch. She knew she was not safe. Then he appeared, a man in a long coat, tall and broad-shouldered, paused at the mouth of the alley. His boots crunched against the wet ground as he stepped closer. His face was lined, marked by years of war and hardship, but his eyes were sharp and searching. He was a soldier once, though now he lived as a simple drifter. He had seen suffering before, but something about this scene made him stop. At first, he thought she was just another starving child. But when she raised her head, when the faint glow of her eyes caught the light, something inside him shifted. There was something in her gaze that did not belong to the streets. It was not the look of a beggar. It was the look of someone who once commanded respect, someone born to higher places. He felt his chest tighten. The girl hissed softly when she noticed him. She pulled back, clutching the crust of bread as if he might take it from her. Her body trembled like a cornered animal. The man did not move closer. Instead, he slowly reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small loaf of bread he had saved for later. Without a word, he placed it on the ground a few steps away and backed off. The girl stared at it. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Her stomach growled loudly in the silence. Finally, with slow, shaky steps, she crawled forward and snatched the loaf. She bit into it desperately, her eyes never leaving his face. The man watched quietly. In that moment, he noticed something else. Her movements were not those of a wild street child. Even in hunger, even in fear, there was grace in the way she held herself. Her back straightened, her shoulders lifted. It was as if her body still remembered a life far away from this dirty alley. He whispered under his breath, almost to himself, "Not a beggar, a duchess." The words surprised him, but they felt true. Something about her did not belong here, among trash and broken glass. He could not explain it, but he knew what he saw. The girl froze at his whisper. For a brief moment, her expression changed. Her sharp eyes widened and her lips pressed together. It was only a second, but he saw it. The flicker of shame, of memory, of a secret too heavy for a child. She quickly lowered her head and returned to eating, but the man had already seen enough. The rain began to fall again, dripping down the broken pipes above. Cold water ran down her hair and onto her pale cheeks, but she did not care. She ate quickly, afraid the food would vanish. The man turned his gaze away from the alley's filth and back to her face. Something inside him whispered that his life had just changed. He had no plan, no reason to help her. But he could not walk away. The girl, weak and alone, finished the last of the bread and curled against the wall, hugging her knees. She looked like she might disappear into the shadows, like a ghost fading into nothing. The man stayed where he was, watching, his thoughts heavy. He had seen death, war, and betrayal. But never had he seen someone like her. Someone who looked broken yet carried an air of silent royalty. The alley was filthy, the night was cruel, but something told him this was not just chance. This was the beginning of something far bigger, Dot. And though he did not yet know her name, he could not shake the thought. The girl in the alley was not what she seemed. Dot. The night stretched on, heavy with rain and the smell of oil rising from the street drains. The man remained at the mouth of the alley, silent, watching the alien girl who now huddled against the wall with her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her silver hair stuck wetly to her face, and her glowing eyes peeked out at him through strands of dirt and rain. She had eaten the bread he offered, but still her body shook with cold and exhaustion. He turned to leave. It would have been the simple choice, the safer one. In this city, strangers did not save strangers. People minded their own business because trouble was everywhere. Yet his boots slowed, his breath grew heavier, and his heart refused to let him walk away. Something about her presence clung to him like a hook buried deep in his chest. He had seen hungry children before, broken men and women, refugees of war, but never someone like her. He stepped back into the alley. The girl flinched. Her fingers tightened against her knees, and she hissed under her breath, a soft alien sound meant to warn him away. She was small, but her eyes blazed with wild defiance. The man raised both hands in a slow, calming gesture. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice low, steady. She didn't answer. Her lips trembled. Her eyes flicked to the far end of the alley, as though searching for escape. He crouched down, lowering himself so he would not tower over her. The movement made his old coat brush against the wet ground, the fabric darkening with moisture. He reached into his pocket again, but this time it wasn't food he pulled out. It was a flask of water. He set it down on the pavement between them, then gently nudged it closer with his hand. Her eyes darted to the flask. Her throat moved in a swallow. Slowly, carefully, she stretched out one trembling hand. The moment her fingers touched the flask, she snatched it back quickly as if afraid he might change his mind. She opened it, lifted it to her lips, and drank deeply. The water ran down her chin, mixing with the dirt on her skin, but she didn't care. When she lowered the flask, her breathing slowed. Her gaze flickered back to him, softer now, though still full of mistrust. "Why?" she whispered at last. Her voice cracked from thirst and silence. Her accent was strange, her words broken but understandable. The man paused. He could have given 100 answers: pity, habit, curiosity, but none felt right. Instead, he said the first truth that came to his mind. "Because you shouldn't be here, not like this." Her eyes narrowed. She tilted her head, studying him as though trying to measure his worth. For a moment, the silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft patter of rain. Then she tried to stand. Her legs shook, weak from hunger. She stumbled forward, almost falling face first onto the ground. Without thinking, the man reached out and caught her by the arm. The contact made her stiffen instantly, her eyes wide with panic. She twisted, trying to pull away, but her strength failed her. "Easy," he murmured, steadying her. "I'm not going to hurt you." The word seemed to settle something inside her, though she still glared at him like a cornered animal. Her arm was thin beneath his hand, her skin cold. He helped her stand straight, though her body leaned against the wall for support. It was then that he saw it. As her ragged cloak slipped from her shoulder, the faint glow of a mark appeared beneath the dirt on her skin. It was not a tattoo, not a scar. It was a crest, ancient and unmistakable, burned into her flesh with light itself. His breath caught in his throat. He knew that symbol. Everyone did. It belonged to the alien nobility, the high houses that ruled across the stars. He released her arm quickly, his eyes darting to the shadows of the alley as if expecting enemies to appear at once. The girl noticed his reaction. She clutched her cloak back into place, pulling it tight over her shoulder. Her lips pressed into a thin line, her glowing eyes flashing with shame and warning all at once. "You saw nothing," she whispered harshly. But it was too late. He had seen everything. His mind raced. If the bounty hunters discovered her here, she wouldn't survive. Nobility brought power, but fallen nobility brought danger. He had heard rumors of a missing Duchess, a young heir betrayed by her own blood. He never believed those stories until now. "You need to move," he said firmly, his soldier's voice breaking through. "They'll come looking." Her eyes widened with a mix of fear and disbelief. "You help me?" The man nodded once. "I'll get you out of here." She hesitated, biting her lip as though trying to decide whether to trust him. Trust was not something she could afford. Yet her knees buckled again and she knew she could not survive on her own. Finally, with a small, reluctant nod, she allowed him to guide her. He took off his coat and wrapped it around her small frame, pulling the hood low over her face. Then, without another word, he led her out of the dirty alley and into the rain-soaked streets, where shadows stretched long and danger waited at every corner. The rescue had begun. Not loud, not heroic, but quiet and dangerous. And though neither of them knew it yet, this night would bind their fates together in ways neither could escape. The rain had not stopped, and the city streets glistened with water and neon lights. The man guided the girl through narrow lanes, his coat wrapped around her like a shield. She moved unsteadily, her body weak, but her steps carried a strange dignity, as though she had once walked halls of marble and not alleys of trash. He could feel her trembling, yet her eyes were sharp, alert, always watching the shadows. They reached a quieter part of the district, where abandoned shops lined the street. Their shutters were broken, their windows covered in grime. The man led her inside one, pushing open a door that squeaked on rusty hinges. Dust filled the air and the room smelled of old wood. It was dry at least and hidden from the city's watchful eyes. She sank down onto a crate, her thin arms hugging her chest. He knelt a few steps away, pulling a small lantern from his pack and lighting it. The glow filled the dark room, flickering softly across her face. In the new light, he could see her better. Even under dirt and torn clothes, she was striking. Her features were delicate, her skin pale with a faint shimmer beneath it. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the lantern light, though tangled and dirty. For a moment, she looked like any lost girl, fragile and broken. But then the cloak slipped again, sliding off her shoulder. The man froze. The glow returned, not from her skin, but from the mark etched into it, a crest, elegant and sharp, pulsed faintly with light. It looked carved by fire, yet alive like a living star. He recognized it instantly. The seal of the high houses. His throat tightened. He had only seen it once before, years ago, when he was a soldier guarding an alien envoy. The mark meant nobility, meant power, it also meant danger. "You?" he whispered, his voice barely steady. "You're not just some runaway. Who are you, really?" Her head snapped up, her glowing eyes locking onto his. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Her lips parted, then closed again. She looked away, pulling the cloak tight around herself. "You saw nothing," she muttered, her voice low, almost a growl. But he had seen everything. The soldier in him could not unsee it. He leaned closer, his voice sharper now. "That mark, it belongs to the Duchess, the one the Empire is hunting, the one they say betrayed her people." Her body stiffened, her hands curling into fists. Anger flashed in her eyes, mixed with pain. "Lies," she spat, her voice breaking. "All lies. They betrayed me, my own blood, my family." The words slipped out before she could stop them. She turned away quickly, breathing hard, her shoulders shaking. The man's chest tightened. He had heard rumors of treachery among the alien high houses. A young duchess framed for crimes she didn't commit, stripped of her title, hunted like an animal. Most thought it was just propaganda, but now, sitting in front of him, shivering in a ruined cloak, was living proof. "Why come here?" he asked softly. "Why Earth?" Her laugh was bitter, broken. "Because it is the only place no one looks for royalty in the trash." The truth struck him like a blade. This girl, This Duchess was hiding in filth because she had nowhere else to go. Suddenly, a faint hum vibrated through the floor. Both of them stilled. The man's head snapped toward the cracked window. Outside, faint lights flickered in the sky. Drones. Their red beams cut across the rooftops, scanning the streets. His pulse quickened. They were searching already. The girl's breath caught. Her hands clutched the edge of the crate, her eyes wide with fear. "They found me," she whispered. The soldier's instincts kicked in. He grabbed her hand firmly, pulling her to her feet. "Not yet. Stay quiet." She resisted for a moment, shaking her head. "You don't understand. If they catch me, they'll kill you too. Anyone who helps me, then they'll have to kill me." He cut her off, his voice steel. His grip on her hand tightened. "Because I'm not letting them take you." Her eyes widened. She searched his face as if trying to understand why a stranger would risk his life for her. For a moment, her lips trembled with words she could not form. The drones buzzed closer, their beams sweeping dangerously near the window. The man quickly pulled her deeper into the shadows, pressing her against the wall as the light passed across the broken shopfront. The hum grew louder, then slowly faded as the machines moved on. The girl's body trembled against him, her breath shaky. She pressed her face into his chest, just for a second, as though hiding. When the danger passed, she pulled back, her cheeks flushed. For the first time, her proud mask cracked and a whisper slipped out. "Why do you care, human?" The man's jaw tightened. Memories of war flooded his mind, faces of people he had failed to save, innocence crushed under the weight of power. He swallowed hard, his voice rough. "Because I've seen too many people abandoned. I won't let it happen again." The girl stared at him, her glowing eyes softer now. The mark on her shoulder pulsed faintly under the cloak as if alive. And in that ruined shop, in the silence after the drones passed, a fragile bond was born. The soldier knew he could still walk away, leave her to her fate. But deep down, he already understood. His life was no longer his alone. He had seen the mark. He had heard her truth. And now, whether he wanted it or not, her fight had become his. The hum of the drones faded into the distance, but the soldier's instincts screamed that danger was not gone. It was only waiting. The girl sat slumped against the wall, her cloak pulled tightly over her glowing mark, her chest rising and falling in short breaths. She looked fragile, like she might collapse at any moment, yet her eyes still held that same defiance, that silent fire that marked her as something more than a beggar. The man paced near the cracked window, his boots crunching over shards of glass. He could not sit still. He had been in too many battles, seen too many hunts. He knew how predators moved, and he knew the drones were only the first sweep. Soldiers would follow, hunters would track her scent, and if they found her, they would not hesitate to burn the entire block to ashes. "We have to move," he said firmly. The girl lifted her head, strands of silver hair falling across her dirt-streaked face. "No," she whispered, shaking her head weakly. "You should leave me here. You don't understand, human. I am cursed. Anyone who helps me..." Her voice cracked. "They all die." He crouched in front of her, his eyes sharp. "Listen. To me, I've buried enough ghosts. I won't add yours to them. You're coming with me." For a moment, her eyes widened, searching his face as if looking for some hidden trick, some reason behind his madness. But all she found was stubborn resolve. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she let him pull her to her feet. Her legs wobbled, but he steadied her with a strong arm. They slipped out the back door of the ruined shop, into the narrow alleys that wound like veins through the city. The rain had slowed, but the night was thick with mist. Neon signs flickered weakly overhead, their light cutting strange patterns across the wet ground. The man kept her close, guiding her through shadows, every step quiet, careful. But silence could not last. A metallic screech tore through the night, followed by heavy boots pounding against the street. The hunters had arrived. The girl stiffened, her hand clutching his sleeve tightly. "They're here," she whispered Dot. He didn't answer. His grip tightened on her arm, and he pulled her into motion. They darted down one alley, then another, weaving through the city's forgotten underbelly. Trash bins toppled behind them as their steps splashed through puddles. Dot. The sound of pursuit grew louder. Mechanical hounds, their claws scraping against concrete, barked with sharp metallic roars. The soldier's chest burned with the rush of adrenaline, his soldier's mind mapping escape routes in seconds. Dot. He pulled her into a narrow passage barely wide enough for two people. The walls were wet with moss, the air damp and suffocating. They pressed against the stone, breathing heavily as the sounds of boots and machines passed near the entrance. Dot. The girl's glowing eyes darted up at him, fear plain in her face. "You should leave me," she whispered again, voice trembling. "If they catch you with me, they'll kill you." His jaw clenched. "If they catch you alone, they'll do worse. So stop asking me to run." The words struck her silent. For the first time, her defiance softened into something else. Something dangerously close to trust. Dot. The hunters' voices echoed through the night, distorted by helmets. The mark was seen. She is close. Spread out. No mistakes. The man pulled her deeper into the shadows. Moving with the silent precision of a soldier trained in survival, they ducked behind broken fences, slipped through half-collapsed doors, and climbed over piles of discarded metal. The city seemed endless, yet the hunters closed in like a tightening noose. Dot. At one point, a drone swept low, its red beam slicing across the alley. The girl froze, terror in her eyes. Without hesitation, the man pushed her down, covering her with his body as the beam passed inches above them. The drone hovered for a heartbeat, then moved on. Dot. She stared up at him. Her breath caught. Her lips parted, but no words came. The closeness of his warmth, the shield of his body. It shook her in ways hunger and fear could not. Dot. When the danger passed, he pulled her up again. "Move," he said sharply, though his voice carried more urgency than anger. Dot. They reached a broken stairway that led to the rooftops. He helped her climb, his strong hands lifting her when her weak legs faltered. From the roof, the city stretched out in endless waves of neon and fog. But below, shadows moved like wolves circling prey. "The hunters were everywhere. They won't stop," she whispered, her voice filled with despair. "They'll follow until I'm caught. They'll follow until I'm caught." He looked at her, rain running down his face. His eyes were hard, unshaken. "Then we make sure they never catch you." She stared at him, stunned. Her whole life since her fall had been filled with betrayal, with people who abandoned her the moment trouble came. And yet here was a human stranger, willing to risk everything for her. Dot. For the first time, she believed maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone. Dot. But the hunters were still out there, closing in. The chase was not over. Dot. And as thunder rolled in the distance, the soldier knew one truth. Protecting her would demand more than courage. It would demand his very life. Dot. The city roofs stretched endlessly under the mist, glowing faintly with neon lights from below. The soldier guided the girl across them, his hand steady on her arm each time her legs threatened to give way. The hunters' voices and the metallic growl of their hounds echoed behind. But for now, the distance grew wider. The rain had slowed, leaving only the sound of dripping water and the faint hum of power lines above. Dot. At last, he stopped before an old warehouse at the edge of the industrial district. Its doors were rusted shut, its windows shattered, and weeds pushed through cracks in the ground. To anyone passing by, it was nothing more than a forgotten ruin. But the soldier knew better. He had once used it as a fallback point during the war, a place no one cared to search. Dot. He pulled at a loose panel near the side, revealing a narrow entrance hidden behind piles of scrap. The girl hesitated, her eyes scanning the darkness inside. Fear flickered across her face. "It's safe," he said quietly. "Safer than the streets." After a moment, she nodded. Together, they slipped inside. Dot. The air smelled of rust and dust, Old crates lay stacked in corners, covered in cobwebs. Broken machines stood like sleeping giants, their gears frozen in time. The soldier lit a small lantern, its soft glow pushing back the shadows. For the first time since they had met, there was no sound of pursuit. The girl sank onto an old crate, pulling his coat tighter around her thin body. She was still shaking, but not from the cold this time. Her glowing eyes darted around the room as if expecting betrayal even here. "You shouldn't have brought me," she whispered. "They'll follow. They always follow." The soldier crouched, nearby, watching her with steady eyes. "Let them try. This place will hold for tonight. Rest while you can." She gave a bitter laugh, though it was weak. "Rest? I haven't rested since the night they took everything." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, her proud mask slipped. "Do you even know who I am, human?" He didn't answer at once. Instead, he leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. "I've seen enough to guess." Her lips pressed into a tight line. She looked away, silver hair falling across her face. Silence stretched between them, until at last she spoke again, her voice trembling. "I was born into the high house of Valora. My name was Serenia." The name struck him like a blade. He had heard it once, years ago, whispered in the ranks of soldiers. Serenia Valora, the Duchess of the Star Courts. Her family had ruled with elegance and pride. Then came the rumors, betrayal, treason, conspiracy. The Empire declared her a traitor, hunted her across the stars. "You're her," he said slowly. "The lost Duchess." Her hands clenched tightly in the folds of the coat. "Not lost," she muttered. "Thrown away. My own blood turned on. Me. They blamed me for crimes I never committed, and the Empire believed them. Since then, I've been hunted like an animal." The soldier's jaw tightened. He had seen betrayal before, men sacrificed by their leaders to cover lies. But to see it done to a child of nobility, to someone still so young, it boiled his blood. She looked at him then, her glowing eyes shimmering with pain. "Do you understand now? Anyone who helps me dies. My guards, my servants, even strangers who offered me bread, they all paid the price." Her voice broke. "You should have left me in the alley." But he shook his head firmly. "No, I made my choice the moment I saw you." His gaze hardened. "You're not a curse. You're a survivor. And as long as I'm breathing, they won't take you." Her breath caught. For a moment she searched his face as if trying to find the lie. But she found none. Her shoulders sagged and a single tear slid down her dirty cheek. She turned away quickly, hiding it. The soldier let her be. Instead, he moved quietly around the warehouse, checking doors, windows, and weak points. His hands worked with practiced skill, securing the entrances with chains and broken metal. Soon the place was a fortress, crude but solid. By the time he returned, she had curled on the crate, his coat wrapped tightly around her small frame. Her breathing was slow, though restless, as sleep fought its way past her fear. The faint glow of her mark pulsed under the fabric, a reminder of who she truly was. He sat nearby, his back against the wall, watching over her. His mind churned with questions: why she was betrayed, who truly hunted her, and how deep the danger went. But one truth settled deep in his chest. Leaving her was no longer an option. The storm outside quieted, but inside the warehouse, another storm brewed. 2 lives, one broken by betrayal, the other scarred by war, had collided by chance. And now their fates were tied together in ways neither could escape. As the lantern flickered and the night grew darker, the soldier whispered to himself, "Rest while you can, Duchess. Tomorrow the hunt begins again." But in his heart he knew the truth. Tomorrow he would no longer just be a drifter. Tomorrow he would be her shield. The lantern burned low in the warehouse, its light trembling with every gust of wind that slipped through the broken walls. The soldier sat with his back against the cold concrete, his eyes never leaving the girl. She was curled on the crate, half asleep, half trapped in her nightmares. Every now and then her body twitched, and she whispered words in a tongue he did not understand. He knew the signs. He had seen soldiers dream like that before, fighting wars in their sleep. But this girl was no soldier. She was too young, too fragile. Yet the mark on her shoulder told a different story. She carried the weight of empires, the stain of betrayal, and the shadow of death. The soldier's hands tightened into fists. He had sworn no more oaths after the war, no more causes, no more masters. He had buried his armor, walked away from flags and commanders. But staring at her, he felt the weight of a new oath forming inside him, one he could not ignore. He whispered, under his breath, "I'll protect you, even if it kills me." The words were quiet, but they filled the warehouse like a vow carved in stone. The girl stirred. Her glowing eyes opened, faint and weary. She studied him through the dim light. Her voice soft but sharp. "Why do you stay, human? You could leave. You could run far and they would never find you." He shook his head. "Because I've seen what happens when the world abandons someone. I won't be one of them." Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment she looked like she wanted to argue, but instead her gaze dropped to the floor. Her voice trembled as she said, "You don't know what they will do to you, to me, to anyone who stands in their way." "I've faced worse," he replied simply. "I've fought armies. I've watched comrades fall beside me. But this," he gestured toward her, "this I can fight for. Not orders, not power, just you." The silence stretched. Her eyes softened, and something unspoken flickered in them. She pulled his coat tighter around her, hiding not from the cold but from emotions she did not want him to see. Before either of them could speak again, the faint hum of machinery reached their ears. The soldier's body stiffened. He stood quickly, moving to the window. Outside, through the fog, beams of red light cut across the streets. The hunters had returned. The girl's breath caught. "They're here again." He turned back to her, his voice steady. "Then we hold. I promised they won't take you." She stared at him, disbelief mixing with fear. "You can't fight them all." A grim smile touched his lips. "I don't need to fight them all. I just need to fight long enough to keep you alive." He moved quickly, securing the lantern and checking his old weapon. It was little more than a battered rifle, but in his hands it was enough. His fingers traced the metal with the ease of an old soldier. He loaded it, then glanced back at her. Her face was pale, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Why risk everything for me?" she asked again, almost pleading. He paused. Memories of the battlefield flashed through his mind, faces of men and women who had once trusted him, faces he could not save. His voice was rough as he answered, "Because I couldn't save them, but I can save you." The words hit her harder than any blade. Her chest tightened, and for a moment she forgot. Her fear. No one had spoken to her like that since before her fall, before her family's betrayal. No one had looked at her as more than a prize, a target, or a curse. Now this human, a stranger, gave her something else, something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. The hum of the hunters grew louder. Shadows moved outside the broken windows, their red eyes glowing through the mist. The soldier raised his rifle, steady and calm. "Stay behind me," he said firmly. "No matter what happens, don't run into the open. Do you understand?" She nodded slowly, her eyes wide but unblinking. The first blast shook the warehouse, sending dust raining from the ceiling. The doors rattled as something heavy slammed against them. The soldier braced himself, his heart steady. He had sworn no more oaths after the war. But tonight he had broken that vow. This was his oath now, to shield the fallen Duchess, to stand between her and the storm no matter the cost. And as the hunters closed in, the soldier whispered the promise once more, louder this time, like a prayer carried into battle. "They won't take you, not while I'm alive." The girl's breath caught, her glowing eyes locked on him. For the first time her fear gave way to something else. Not despair, not shame, but belief. And in that flicker of belief, in that fragile bond, the soldier felt stronger than he had in years. Strong enough to face the shadows. The warehouse trembled under the pounding of metal fists. Each strike against the doors echoed through the hollow space like thunder, shaking dust from the rafters. The soldier gripped his rifle tighter, his body coiled and ready. His breathing was steady, but his eyes carried the sharp focus of a man who had faced death too many times to fear it. The girl sat against the far wall, her cloak drawn tight, her glowing eyes locked on him. Every strike of the hunters made her flinch, yet she didn't cry out. Her pride wouldn't allow it. She had been a duchess once, a child of royal blood. Even hunted, even broken, she refused to appear weak. Still, he could see the tremor in her hands. The pounding stopped. Silence filled the air. It was worse than the noise, because silence meant the enemy was ready. The soldier raised his hand, signaling her to stay low. Then the door burst inward. A surge of figures stormed in. Hunters clad in black armor, their visors glowing red, mechanical hounds snarling at their sides. The lantern light caught their blades and rifles, gleaming sharp in the dark. The soldier fired first. The shot cracked through the warehouse, dropping one of the armored hunters before it could react. Chaos exploded. Bullets and beams lit the shadows. Machines roared, and the scent of burning metal filled the air. "Stay down," he shouted over the noise. The girl pressed against the wall, clutching his coat tighter. She wanted to run. Every part of her screamed for escape. But something in her heart stopped her. His words from earlier rang in her mind. "They won't take you. Not while I'm alive." He moved like the soldier he once was. Fast, precise, unshaken. Every shot found its mark. Every step was calculated. He used the crates and broken machines as cover, weaving through the shadows as he fired. But there were too many. For every hunter he dropped, two more pressed forward. A hound leapt at him, its metal jaws snapping. He swung his rifle hard, smashing the beast into the wall, then fired point blank. Sparks showered across the floor as the machine collapsed in a smoking heap. The girl's eyes widened. She had seen soldiers fight before, trained guards, elite warriors of the Empire, but none fought like this man. His movements weren't polished or noble. They were raw, born of survival, of a man who fought not for honor but for life. Yet still they pushed closer. A blast ripped through the air, striking the crates near her. Wood shattered, splinters cutting her cheek. She cried out, clutching her face, and in that moment the hunters saw her. "There," one of them shouted. "The mark! The Duchess lives!" Her heart froze. Her secret was out. The soldier reacted instantly, throwing himself between her and the advancing hunters. Bullets tore past him, one grazing his shoulder, another slamming into his armor with a heavy thud. He grunted but did not fall. Instead, he charged forward, rifle barking fire. The girl trembled, her glowing eyes wide. She had seen people abandon her the moment they knew the truth. Servants who once bowed before her, soldiers who swore loyalty. They had all fled when the Empire turned against her. But this man, a stranger, a human with no reason to stay, he fought harder because of who she was, not despite it. Another explosion rocked the warehouse, tearing open the side wall. Rain poured in through the gap, lightning flashing beyond. The storm outside had reached its peak, thunder roaring across the city. The battle inside matched it. Chaos, fire, and fury. The soldier stumbled, his back pressed against the wall, his rifle nearly empty. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, blurring his vision. Yet when he looked at her, his voice was still, iron. "Run when I say. Don't look back." She shook her head fiercely, tears burning her eyes. "No, not without you." He almost smiled at her words. Almost. "You're stronger than you think. Don't waste it." Before she could answer, the hunters surged again. He roared, a sound born not of rage but of defiance, and fired the last of his rounds. The shots echoed like thunder, striking true, holding the enemy back for just a heartbeat more. The girl's chest heaved. Her whole life she had been told she was cursed, a danger to everyone around her. But this man saw her not as a curse, not as a beggar in the dirt, but as someone worth fighting for, worth dying for. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. The mark on her shoulder flared brighter than ever before. The glow spread across her skin, wrapping her in a halo of light. She rose to her feet, her eyes blazing with power long buried under fear. The hunters froze, their visors flickering as the light struck them. The soldier turned his head, stunned by what he saw. The broken girl from the alley was gone. Before him stood the Duchess. Proud, fierce, unstoppable. Energy crackled through the air as the hunters faltered. The storm outside roared, as if the sky itself answered her awakening. The girl stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. I am Serenia Valora, and I will not run anymore. The hunters hesitated, their ranks wavering. For the first time, fear touched them. The soldier lowered his empty rifle, his chest heaving. A slow, tired smile spread across his face. That's the Duchess I saw, he whispered. Lightning split the sky, and the warehouse filled with her light. The rising storm had begun, not just in the city, not just in the skies, but in their lives. From this night forward, nothing would ever be the same.